Hello everyone, welcome to Just Get MBBS NEET Essential videos. I am Karthikeyan. In this video, we are going to start off with the excretory products and elimination, and the first thing that we'll be covering is on the structure of kidney and the nephrons. A very important aspect for a NEET exam. Even in NEET 2020, we got one question from nephron. So starting off with a small introduction on the structure of kidney, not that important for an exam, but just to get you guys oriented to the topic. Now, as far as the organ is concerned, the first point that you must know is it is covered by a tough capsule. So the outer aspect of the kidney is covered by a tough capsule and it extends from T12 to L3 vertebra. These are some two important anatomical points that you must know with respect to kidney. Now getting on to the internal structure. So I just cut section a kidney and I am just going to observe that. So if we observe, we have got two zones, the outer aspect and an inner aspect. So this portion is the outer aspect of my kidney, the yellow highlighted one, and rest of it. So starting from here till this portion is something called as an inner aspect. So the outer aspect is called as the cortex, whereas the inner aspect is called as the medulla. So inner aspect, the entire portion, it is called as medulla. So we'll try to study these structures. So cortex not much important, but with respect to medulla, we need to know some structures. So what are these structures that we must be familiar with respect to the medulla? Is the first one, we need to talk something on what is called as hilum. The second one is your renal pelvis. Third one is your column of Bertini. And maybe much before that, we need to talk about medullary pyramids. So these are some structures that we must talk about. And for your NEET exam, a question can be asked from your column of Bertini or it can be from your medullary pyramid. So these are some important points. So we'll just try to cover these. So what is hilum basically? See, hilum, if you take, it is not only confined to kidney, any organ where we have got an entry and an exit point. Like for example, in a building, if you take, gate is where a person through which a person can enter or leave, right? Similarly, hilum is something like a gate for an organ. That is the region through which structures can go in and out of that particular place. So if we appreciate the structures of kidney, we have got something called as renal artery, renal vein, ureter, and we will also have some nerves that can pass through this structure. So this region of kidney is called as hilum. So hilum is any structure through which the or associated structures are going to enter. So with respect to kidney, what points you must know is the structures that are going to pass through this hilum. So I have listed down these structures: renal artery, renal vein, ureter, and sometimes even the nerves. So one factual thing that could be asked in your exam is on which surface it is located. So hilum, if you take, it is located towards the inner concave surface of the kidney. So this is one theoretical factual point that you must know. It is located towards the inner concave surface of the kidney. Next, renal pelvis. So following hilum, so this is my hilum region. If I try to go a little bit inside, I'm able to appreciate a broad space. Right? I'm able to appreciate a broad space, and that broad funnel shaped space is called as my renal pelvis. So it is broad funnel shaped space. That is called as renal pelvis. Now, next structure that I want to talk about is the medullary pyramid. So what are these medullary pyramids? They are the conical masses that are present in the medulla, that is called as medullary pyramids. Nothing much. Now, important is column of Bertini. So with respect to column of Bertini, what can be asked in your exams is what is column of Bertini? Which of the following statements are true with respect to column of Bertini? The only point that you must know with respect to column of Bertini is, now we'll try to highlight these spaces. So if you appreciate here, we have got some spaces, right? So these spaces. So if you appreciate, this is my cortex, this is my medulla. So the cortical cells, what is happening here? The cortical cells are extending. The cortical cells, they extend into medulla as a column, right? Extend into medulla as a column. That is called as your column of Bertini or your renal column or your renal column. So the extension of cortical cells into medulla in form of a column-like cells is called as column of Bertini or called as renal column. So these are the points that you must know with respect to the structure of kidney. Now moving on to nephrons, an important aspect. So with respect to nephron, the first question that you must know will be the Malpighian body, or we refer to as renal corpuscle. Malpighian body or renal corpuscle. So what is this? So you all know the structure of the nephron. I do not want to get into that. So glomerulus, right? Bowman's capsule, PCT. So first convoluted tubule is your PCT, followed by your descending limb. So this is my descending limb of loop of Henle. This is my ascending limb of loop of Henle. Second convoluted tubule, that is your DCT. So this is my DCT. And finally, I've got my collecting duct. So what is this Malpighian body or your renal corpuscle? It is nothing but your glomerulus plus your Bowman's capsule, which forms your Malpighian body. So when I say glomerulus, it includes both your afferent arteriole and your efferent arteriole. So what is this glomerulus? It is a tuft of capillaries. It's an important statement that you must know from NCERT. Tuft of capillaries that is formed from afferent arteriole. Afferent arteriole, in turn, it is a branch of renal artery. So afferent arteriole, glomerulus, and then your efferent arteriole plus your Bowman's capsule together form what is called as your Malpighian body or a renal corpuscle. What happens to efferent arteriole? This efferent arteriole, it gives rise to so many branches called as peritubular capillaries. And this peritubular capillaries, in turn, it gives rise to one of the branch, a long branch that runs parallel to loop of Henle, that is called as vasa recta. So this is the fate of efferent arteriole. So it gives rise to so many branches called peritubular capillaries. That in turn gives rise to one long parallel branch called as vasa recta that lies parallel to the loop of Henle. Right? This is the first point that you must know. The most important thing for your NEET examination, even 2020 we got a question, was on your functions of tubules. That's a very important aspect. So we'll just try to understand the functions of tubules. So meaning we'll be talking about what are the functions of PCT and what are the functions of DCT and your loop of Henle structures, DCT, and then your collecting duct. Okay. So now talking about the functions of first in is your PCT. The first thing that you must know, it is the major site. It is the major site for reabsorption of electrolytes. It is the major site for reabsorption of electrolytes. So almost 70 to 80% of the electrolytes are absorbed from the PCT. And along with that, there is also absorption of water. There is also absorption of some essential nutrients, etc. Now, this is one important statement that was asked in NEET 2019. Now in 2020, what was the question is, which of the following statements is true with respect to the lining epithelium of PCT? That was the 2020 question. This was 2019. 2020 question was the lining epithelium. Now it's very easy. See, wherever there has to be a reabsorption taking place, like for example in stomach, in the intestine, wherever there is a word called absorption coming in, automatically you should remember a word called brush border, right? So this PCT, it is lined by simple cuboidal brush border epithelium. Simple cuboidal brush border epithelium. This was NEET 2020 question. Okay, simple cuboidal brush border epithelium. These are the two statements that you must know with respect to PCT. Sometimes they can ask which of the following is true with respect to the functions of PCT. So there are some extra other points that you must know with respect to functions. So what are the other points? It is also going to help in the maintenance of pH and ionic balance of the body. So how this pH and ionic balance can be maintained is by secretion of something. Okay. So if you take secretion of hydrogen and then ammonium ions. So secretion of hydrogen, ammonium ions, and then your potassium ions. And then your potassium ions. So these are some points that you must know with respect to PCT. Right? Now, let us move on to the next tubule, that is your loop of Henle. So loop of Henle, you all know we have got two limbs. One is your descending limb of loop of Henle, another one is ascending limb of loop of Henle. So what is the point that you must know with respect to descending limb of loop of Henle? Is it is permeable to water but impermeable, sorry for the spelling, impermeable to electrolytes. So as the fluid, it moves downwards along the descending limb. So this is my descending limb. So as the fluid moves along the descending limb, it is going to know what to say. It is going to allow all the water to move out. It is permeable to water. So descending limb is going to concentrate the filtrate. So it is going to increase the osmolarity of my filtrate that is coming in. So that you would have studied in countercurrent mechanism. I'm not going to cover countercurrent mechanism here because it is not that important for a NEET exam. You just have to know 4 statements. That's it. So I'm not going to cover much in detail, but you know this concept, right? So there is going to be concentration of filtrate happening in descending limb. Why is the concentration happening? Because descending limb is permeable to water, impermeable to electrolytes. Whereas ascending limb is the ulta way. It is impermeable to water, but it is permeable to electrolytes. So it is going to dilute the filtrate. So your descending limb, it is concerned with concentration of the filtrate, and your ascending limb is concerned with your dilution of your filtrate. So these are some points that you must know with respect to loop of Henle. Okay, the next thing that we are going to see is about your distal convoluted tubule. Very important is the word called conditional reabsorption of your sodium and water. Now, we will study in regulation of kidney functions about certain hormones, especially your ADH, antidiuretic hormone. So all that hormones has got some specific receptors on a distal convoluted tubule. So when I say conditional, meaning unless and until there comes a condition, there occurs a situation wherein something has to be done immediately, then this DCT is going to take over the function. So that is the meaning of conditional reabsorption here. So there is conditional reabsorption of sodium and water happening at the distal convoluted tubule, right? And apart from that, it is also going to help in the maintenance of pH and ionic balance. So when I say pH and ionic balance, by secretion of hydrogen ions, potassium ions, by secretion of hydrogen ions and then potassium ions, right? The last one is your collecting ducts. So with respect to collecting ducts, what you must know, 2 things: large amounts of water and some amounts of urea are reabsorbed only in the collecting duct, because the incoming fluid from DCT, it is going to be extremely diluted because of the permeability of ascending limb of loop of Henle, right? So there is going to be extreme dilution happening in the DCT. So when it comes to collecting duct, there has to be concentration. How that concentration is going to happen? Only by means of giving out water molecules back to the interstitium or to the body. So large amounts of water is getting reabsorbed only in the collecting duct. So usually no student gets confused. If in PCT they would have given a statement about 70 to 80% of electrolytes and water are getting absorbed. It's not so. It is just the electrolytes you would have mentioned for 70 to 80%. But large amounts of water is reabsorbed only at the collecting duct, and even some amounts of urea are also absorbed back into the medullary interstitium. And again, it is also going to help in the maintenance of pH and ionic balance. So almost every part of the nephron is going to be involved in the maintenance of pH and ionic balance, right? So we all usually say nephrons are a functional unit. If you ask me the functions of kidney, I will try to list out some 7 or 8 functions of kidney. So what is carrying all that function, or what is taking the burden, is the nephron. So that is why we refer nephrons to be the functional units of kidney, right? So these are some important points. So function of tubules. So from this video, what you must take over is especially the functions of tubules are a very, very important NEET question. So conditional reabsorption, think about DCT. Amount of water reabsorption, collecting that. If somebody asks you about the major site of reabsorption of electrolytes, simple cuboidal breastwater epithelium, PCT. And loop of Finlay, you have to know these statements. So concentration is with respect to descending limb, dilution with respect to the ascending limb. We will see about the urine formation in the next video. Thank you all.